If Akuma is your main character, then this video is an absolute must-see. Get ready to dive into the ultimate compilation of everything you need to know about Street Fighter's most notorious character. From his origin story to his signature moves, we've meticulously gathered every crucial detail about Akuma to satisfy your craving. Brace yourself for an exhilarating journey through the world of this iconic fighter. This video is tailor-made for Akuma enthusiasts like you. Without further ado, let me welcome you to the Fighterverse. We're going to start this video with all of the evolutions of Akuma to understand every single stage of his presence during the Street Fighter timeline. His basic version, as fandom states, Akuma is a cold and extremely powerful warrior whose sole reason for being is to hone his fighting skills by battling and destroying strong foes. He rarely displays any sign of emotions or humanity, and rarely smiles. As a righteous calling, or as an afterthought of conquering a major adversary, he will not engage in battle against helpless people. Akuma usually wears a dark-colored gi, with the sleeves removed, similar to Ken and Ryu. He has red hair with a top knot, sharp pointed teeth, and is often barefooted, though some games have him wearing brown sandals. Depending on the game or piece of art, he either wears a black belt at his waist or a length of rope. Over his hands, he either wears brown training gauntlets or wraps his hands with rope as well. He has tan skin and crimson eyes, and wears his deceased master prayer beads around his neck. When fighting another fighter, Akuma rarely resorts to his true strength. He only fights warriors he deems worthy, or those he believes have the potential to become such. Akuma fought Ryu in Street Fighter Alpha 2 just to gain insight into Ryu's abilities. Shin Akuma, known in Japan as Shin Goki, appeared in Street Fighter Alpha 2 as a hidden boss. This is the form Akuma takes when he becomes almost one with the Satsui no Hado, although he does not lose his humanity in doing so. His personality remains more or less the same as the original. Essentially, he is Akuma using the fullest extent of his power. However, he is more competitive in battle and less merciful when he is fighting a strong warrior. He will only fight at his true potential when he has found an equal to do battle with. The two versions operate very similarly, but Shin Akuma is faster, deals more damage, and can throw 2 Sanku Hadokens at once. His special moves also tend to have more priority and recovery compared to the playable version. Also, his Shin Gokusatsu is much faster and travels farther, making it harder to evade, and in some instances inflicts more damage. In some games, Shin Akuma also has extremely powerful specials as well. Shin Akuma's overall style revolves around completely overwhelming the opponent. He already adds more on top that he can already do as his normal state, and with practically no recovery between his attacks, he can string together more devastating cross-up attacks and combos that he can't do as his regular self. Shin Akuma is not to be taken lightly, since he can do severe damage to a careless player or the opponent. Oni, which translates to ogre, is Akuma in his strongest form. This is the form Akuma takes when he has become one with the Satsui no Hado entirely, completely losing any shred of humanity he had remaining. Due to his training and meditation, Akuma may have surpassed some of the darker aspects of the Satsui no Hado, allowing him to control his actions. As Oni, he finally becomes one with the Satsui no Hado, whose power has now managed to completely overtake him. Oni appears as a far more muscular and noticeably larger version of Akuma. He has dark blue skin, glowing yellow-red eyes, and glowing spiky shoulder-length hair, fangs, and short protrusions on his forehead, resembling growing horns. The top half of his gi has been blown off by the amount of dark chi he emanates, showing off his musculature. The prayer beads that were once around his neck now float about, disconnected around his body. Having reached the full extent of the Satsui no Hado to the point of turning into a demon, instead of a concrete martial art style, he relies on unrestrained yet graceful movements filled with abandon, embodying that of a terrible destructive force beyond control. The Satsui no Hado also enables him to perform powerful energy attacks as well. Another version of Akuma is Cyber Akuma, mechanically enhanced by Apocalypse, Cyber Akuma's upgrades include a mechanical right arm, dubbed Booster Rocket, metal wings, and 4 extra arms that are only seen in one of his win poses. His first appearance was in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter as the final boss. Because of Apocalypse's control over him, Cyber Akuma's personality is vastly different from that of the original Akumas, being more surreal. This is the mecha version of Akuma called Zero Akuma. Zero Akuma is an extremely powerful mech based on Akuma, featured in the game Cyberbot's Full Metal Madness. It featured a unique playstyle similar to Street Fighter's Akuma, as well as a unique life bar design. Zero Akuma's powers and abilities are flight, weapon mastery, energy manipulation and energy projection, martial arts, force field creation, and explosion manipulation. In Street Fighter 6, Akuma is back, and his appearance has evolved yet again. As fans of the series may have noticed, one of the most noticeable changes to his appearance is his white hair. While some might attribute this to his connection to the full-blown menace that is Oni, it's possible that this is just a natural sign of aging for the Demon Warrior. Despite being one of the meanest fighters in the series, aging is something that we all inevitably face. Akuma, despite his formidable abilities, is not immune to the passage of time. After all, he and his brother, Goken, were both trained by the legendary Gotetsu, meaning that Akuma is roughly the same age as his sibling. It's a bittersweet realization for fans of the series, as it means that we might be seeing less of the lightning-fast, ultra-powerful Akuma we know and love. However, it also presents an exciting opportunity to explore his character in new and interesting ways. Akuma's latest appearance is not a complete overhaul of his design. While his trademark look is mostly the same, there are a few notable changes. His prayer beads have shifted from brown to black. Additionally, the fur around his shoulders appears to be a lighter color than before, with a wild mane of hair that may or may not contain some animal fur. The images of Akuma's new design have caused quite a stir among fans, with many wondering what these changes might signify. Is he embracing his connection to the demon realm in a more visceral way? As a fan of the Street Fighter franchise, I've been following the latest updates on Akuma's appearance with great interest. And while there may have been some changes to his design, I can't help but wonder if there's more to it that meets the eye. Personally, I think Capcom is working hard to make Akuma even cooler than before. He's already one of the most exciting characters in the series, and it's clear that the development team wants to take him up to the next level. One possible feature that they could be working on is the concept of a level up system for Akuma. This could be something akin to Minon's medallion level up system, where Akuma's appearance changes as he taps into the full power of the Satsui no Hado. His white hair and overall appearance could serve as an indication of his transformation, as he becomes more submerged in the dark energy that fuels his fighting style. This could give him an even greater edge in combat, with abilities that go beyond human comprehension. Of course, it's important to remember that designs and ideas can change all the time during game development. We don't know for sure if this theory holds any weight until we see Akuma in action in the upcoming game. It's possible that this could be a hint towards Akuma's journey towards enlightenment, but we won't know for sure until we get to play the game ourselves. Regardless of what changes await Akuma in the future, one thing is for sure, he remains one of the most iconic characters in the Street Fighter universe. Let's start today's episode with the meaning behind his name. Gosetsu's name comes from Street Fighter II, the animated movie, which was produced at the same time as Super Turbo, whereas the name given to Ryu and Ken's master. Capcom adapted the name Gotetsu for Goken and Akuma's master, instead of being another name for Goken. Gotetsu has many variants of his origin stories, and what is known of the master. In the more traditional story, Gotetsu was the martial arts master of Goken and his brother Akuma, and was also a user of the Satsui no Hado, being the only known person who could use the power without falling into its darker aspects, possibly because he only used it sparingly and wisely. This was also how his two students were introduced to its power. Prior to the events shown in the Street Fighter games, Gotetsu was challenged and killed by Akuma, at his full potential, who performed the Shungoku Satsu on his soul in a fight to the death. Gotetsu gladly died, happy to see that his student surpassed him in the art. The prayer beads that Akuma wears originally belonged to Gotetsu. Gotetsu can be seen in Akuma's ending, along with Goken in the original Street Fighter Alpha. This was his only on-screen appearance in the series. In Street Fighter Alpha Generations, Gotetsu has an important role in the animated movie. He is shown fighting Akuma at the beginning, and is revealed that he has tried in vain to dissuade his student from delving deeper and deeper into the power of the Satsui no Hado. While Gotetsu himself proved able to tap into its power, unlike Akuma, he didn't seem to suffer from its side effects, likely because his more balanced approach and rarer use. Unlike his game appearance, he is depicted as having short hair and a very small stature. In Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, in keeping with his established backstory and depiction, he is shown as the old master of Goken and Goki, the original name of Akuma, teaching them the old ways of the Anatsuken to overcome and destroy the opponent, but also preaching about finding balance between the light and the darkness. As Goki immersed himself in the study of the Satsui no Hado, Gotetsu ordered him to leave the dojo. When Goki resurfaced as Akuma, Gotetsu challenged him to try and stop him, but was defeated and killed by his former student. He is also depicted as having a niece, Sayaka, who served as a love interest for both Goken and Akuma. In another variant of Gotetsu's story and origins, Udon Comics released Street Fighter Origins, Akuma, which gives a little more information on the Anatsuken master. It was revealed that Gotetsu had originally a group of students and fighters who were well versed in the Hado. At some point, many of his students, such as Gyuki, and his first generation of students were almost possessed by the Satsui no Hado and had to turn into demonic beings and assassins. Eventually, they turned against each other due to the evils that was caused by Gyuki. Gotetsu saw the potential threat of what could happen if someone was not able to contain the Dark Hado with light, and sent a group of men to find Gyuki and his hiding spots to take him out. During the winter in Japan, he and Retsu found a young Akuma who was badly wounded from a bear attack. He took Akuma back to his dojo to help heal him. As Akuma woke up, he asks him where is he. Gotetsu tells him that he has nowhere to go and that he heard about Gyuki, his father's murder. Gotetsu told Akuma that he once trained his father. After a long talk, Gotetsu told Akuma that he would find his brother Goken. Akuma, however, told him that Goken did not want to be found, and that Akuma wanted to know all about Anatsuken and its techniques. Many years later, a businessman who hosts tournaments came to Gotetsu's dojo in order to find Akuma. Gotetsu told him where to find Akuma. Later that night, Gotetsu noticed that Akuma was troubled, and he asked him to come inside the dojo to ask him what was wrong. Akuma told him that he wanted to know more about himself, and left the dojo in order to find himself the very next day. Goken appeared right in front of Gotetsu and his dojo to thank him, and asked him to train him in order to grow stronger as a person, which Gotetsu agreed to. 5 years later, Akuma came back to Gotetsu and the dojo to train again in order for him to become the perfect warrior. Gotetsu told him that he must go into the mountains in order for him to find who he truly is. When Gotetsu was training other young students on the art of Anatsuken, a demonic-looking Akuma under the influence of the Satsui no Hado looked at him with rage. Gotetsu told Akuma to abandon the power, like his father did before it corrupted him completely. Akuma told him that he finally knows about how his father was killed, and tells Gotetsu's time has come. The two engaged in a fight, as Gotetsu told him about how dangerous the Satsui no Hado was if fully embraced, and told him that he cannot stop fighting. He pleads with him to stop, and asks him what he truly wants from this fight, only for Akuma to reply that he wants him to prepare for death. Akuma kicks him in the air with the demon Armageddon, kicking Gotetsu through the dojo roof, killing him. As a sign of gratitude for all the years spent under him, Akuma takes his body to a mat under a tree and respectfully lies him down. Fun fact, Gyuki's name means Ox Demon. Ox alludes to the strength of Goken, and Demon alludes to Akuma. As stated by fandom, while earlier Street Fighter games made references to Ryu and Ken's master, Goken made his first illustrated appearance in Street Fighter II, Ryu, Masaomi Kansaki's manga adaptation of Street Fighter II. Since then, Goken has appeared in several Street Fighter movies and comics, including Udon's Street Fighter line of comics, Akuma's ending in Street Fighter Alpha, and the Street Fighter Alpha Generations movie. Before his illustration in Street Fighter Alpha, Goken's appearance would differ vastly between media. Goken himself was based off Shenlong, a character that originated from the infamous English mistranslation of Ryu's win quote from the early versions of the Street Fighter II series, "You must defeat Shenlong to stand a chance," which many speculated was referring to Ryu's master. It was intended to say, "You must defeat my Shoryuken to stand a chance." April Fool's jokes created by EGM in 1992 and 1997 actually provided an appearance for Shenlong, which in turn directly influenced Goken's current appearance. It should be noted that, prior to Street Fighter IV, Shenlong was actually used as Goken's Western name in some media, similar to how his brother is referred to as either Akuma or Goki, depending on the region. Goken was finally introduced as a playable character in Street Fighter IV, In response to fans demanding Shenlong, one of his obtainable player titles states, aka Shenlong, and one of his win quotes even references the original quote, "You must defeat me to stand a chance." His appearance is similar to the Shinto Kunitsukami Dairi, Sarutaiko, who is considered the oldest of the patron gods of the martial arts in Japan, representative of purification, strength, courage, and is the guardian of the bridge that connects the earth to the heavens. His personality may also be reflective of Morehi Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido and spiritualist who found enlightenment and spiritual harmony in his later years. It is also said that Goken and Akuma's design were based on the Nio, or the Gongurikishi, two wrathful statues that guard under a separate temple the entrance of a Japanese Buddhist temple. Each of these statues states a purpose, thus having a meaning in their creation. The right statue that guards the gate of the Buddhist temple is called Misaku Kongo. It is a symbol of overt violence, with its open mouth and baring teeth, holding a mallet ready to protect with ferocity the entrance to the temple. The left statue that guards the temple is called Narian Kongo. This statue symbolizes strength. It can wield a sword or it can be bare-handed. One of its characteristics is that this statue has its mouth closed, demonstrating serenity and power. Goken is usually depicted as a bearded man who wears Japamala prayer beads on his neck and a karate gi with the kanji mu sewn to the back. It is said that the Japanese and Korean term mu, or Chinese wu, means not have, without, is a key word in Buddhism, especially Zen traditions. As the preceding master of the martial art that Ryu and Ken practice and wield in the series, Goken is nonetheless the originator and peerless practitioner of the toned-down assassination martial art taught by Gotetsu. As seen in his moveset, Goken has mastered the martial art to the point that he has grown to create techniques that better suit his own dynamics and philosophies, one that follows the use of both the Hado no Chikara and the power of nothingness for an effective and powerful form of self-defense, rather than the violent and destructive form of the martial art that his brother wields within the Satsui no Hado. This is most significant in his repertoire, spelling and dynamics. Many of their kanji are those with more benevolent and less wrathful interpretations than ones seen in Akuma's, and they are performed in such ways where they are intended for knockout stopping force rather than maiming and severe injury. As stern and serious as he can be, Goken is nonetheless enthusiastic in the nature of competition, being a spirited and modest good sport at heart. His approach is silent and calm, evocative of Zen principles, and he often shares insightful, if not also blunt and critical, advice and wisdom to that effect. For example, he tells Dan that anger will not help him, fearing it would lead him to a dark place, and he informs DJ that if he is silent, he would be surprised at what he learns. He is on good terms with people like Rose and Dalsum, who share similar ideals and beliefs. Goken detests Akuma for killing their master, Gotetsu, and embracing the darkness that resides within their arts, instead of seeking a purer form of strength. He also despises Bison for his use of psycho power, believing he endangered the world. The most destructive character in the Street Fighter universe first made his debut on Super Street Fighter II Turbo, Hyperfighting, on December 1992. Akuma's legacy started there, but its character creation was not brought without thought and planning. Akuma's character was sketched and redesigned multiple times by the Japanese-based video game company Capcom, in which the Street Fighter franchise is in. The Capcom team of graphic designers wanted to make sure to have the perfect character to be in the vessel of the Dark Hado. Since not having much success with its drawings, the Street Fighter Capcom found inspiration on the ends of Buddhism. Akuma's design was based on the Nio, or the Gongurikishi, two wrathful statues that guard under a separate temple at the entrance of Japanese Buddhist temples. Each of the statues states a purpose, thus having a meaning in their creation. The right statue that guards the gate of the Buddhist temple is called Mishaku Kongo. It is a symbol of overt violence, with its open mouth and baring teeth, holding a mallet ready to protect with ferocity the entrance to the temple. The left statue that guards the temple is called Narian Kongo. This statue symbolizes strength. It can wield a sword, or it can be bare-handed. One of its characteristics is that the statue has its mouth closed, demonstrating serenity and power. The new statue's fierce and threatening look was designed to ward off evil spirits and to keep the temple grounds free of demons and thieves. The irony of the Capcom creators. But nevertheless, we can appreciate the origins of the art and structure of the Street Fighter's Ultimate Fighter. Akuma's fierce looks are just as mean as the arsenal of fighting moves he has in his book. But there is no technique feared by the Street Fighter community, other than his legendary Shungokusatsu, also known as the Wrath of the Raging Demon. The Wrath of the Raging Demon is a very powerful technique taught in the assassination's arts, with any martial art developed with the intention of destroying an opponent. This type of technique was taught by Akuma's trainer, Gotetsu. This technique, when performed, while wielding the Dark Hado power, will be submerged in its killing intent, giving its opponent a series of deadly strikes in an instant. Fighters that had used this technique gave into the powers of the Dark Hado, and eventually became consumed by its power, becoming a violent demonic being. Like, for example, Oni, Akuma's evolution form when he becomes one of the Dark Hado. The only character who could resist this technique without giving in was Akuma's trainer Gotetsu. The interesting aspect of the Wrath of a Raging Demon is that its technique is based on karmic forces obtained from the Dark Hado. Its technique punishes its opponent on the merits of the sins and evil the opponent has marked in his soul. In other words, the damage applied when the Wrath of the Raging Demon is applied is not determined by the strength of Akuma's power, it's determined by the opponent's evilness, hurting its opponent as much as he or she deserves. While being powerful, this technique can only be executed on living life forms that possess a soul. The Wrath of the Raging Demon, when executed, lights up Akuma's back with a red fiery kanji symbol. This symbol on Akuma's back has been the character's trademark design, one who fits full to its persona. But what is the meaning of this symbol? What does it state? The symbol located on Akuma's back is the Japanese kanji called ten, that can also be translated as heaven. This kanji, like in most Japanese writings, can mean plenty of things. It can be translated as day, heaven, or invincibility. The kanji on his back is made to reflect immortality at the rate of power, meaning that when the character 10 appears on its back, it's representing immortality. In old Japanese folklore, whenever the kanji with the character 10 appears on someone's forehead, it means the person is immortal. Thus Capcom, taking the idea of modifying it to fit the symbol on the back of Akuma's guy. Pretty interesting fact, considering that Akuma's style and behavior exceeds the capability of other characters in the Street Fighter universe. Akuma's style of technique is indeed a 10. As promised in the beginning of our video, we have a bonus dark secret about Akuma in the Street Fighter universe. You may wonder how someone with amazing ability and strength gets its energy from. The fact is that Akuma is a great martial artist. He is also indeed a human and needs to feed himself from time to time. But what does a character like Akuma eat? In this prequel film, made by a Capcom-approved fan called Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, we can delve inside Akuma's training regimen when he is exiled from his trainer's dojo. We can see in this short how Akuma uses his Hadouken technique to fish by the lake. By hurling Hadoukens to the lake, he can pick up the unconscious fish that floats on the top, making it an easy meal for Akuma. Hadouken's fishing at its finest. Now, thinking about all the power Akuma expels out of his body, I personally think a couple of fish would not replenish his power and stamina. But at least the guy eats healthy. Maybe that's why he does not need that much food to begin with. But indeed, it's a peculiar fact that makes the character more relatable to his human side. After all, even though he is a strong individual, he is still human. Akuma's character in the Street Fighter universe will always be one of intrigue and mystery. A powerful godlike being, in which his only objective is to be the strongest in the world, achieve superhuman strength, power and status, and to rain terror on any challenger that opposes him. Akuma's legacy to push the boundaries of inner power and display it in the battle arena is what makes this character so amazing. Personally, and to most of the viewers, its favorite character in the Street Fighter saga. The Dark Hado Master himself has secrets in his name that fills the very existence of its personality. The power of nothingness is also known as the Mu Noken in Japanese. It is also known as the Kyosui no Hado, meaning surge of mindless intent, or the sacred Hado. It is a light-based energy force used by Goken, Ryu, and to a certain extent, Ken masters. The power of nothingness is a state of consciousness transcending ordinary perspective, born through spiritual and mental refinement, bearing common traits with states of being with Buddhism, martial arts, and spiritual perfection. It is the power to act without being attached to emotions and thought, free of fear, anger, pride, and ego, to draw upon the contents of one's heart intuitively, without obstacle and hesitation, and to be aware of the world and to know one's place and meaning within its vastness, to flow with all of creation without the need of worry, desire, and doubt. It is the complete opposite of the Satsui no Hado. As such, it can only be used by a person of pure mind, compassion, mercy, and peace. Such a person must have embraced the peaceful and spiritual aspect of the art to their fullest extent. Just like the Satsui no Hado, it makes a person unbelievably powerful, granting invincibility, spiritually and physically, to many attacks, as well as sealing off evil power and making the user a stronger fighter. Goken has practiced with this power throughout his years of training with Gotetsu, and after he had completed his training and left his master to begin with his own dojo, he is the only one who has used this power in battle in the games, as shown by his Shin form. Shin can be written using different kanji characters and can mean true, extend, or new. Ryu and Ken have awakened this power, but only Ryu has mastered it as of the events of Street Fighter V, capable of using it to render his soul, incapable of consumption by Nikali, and capable of defeating M. Bison's Psycho Power. The Psycho Power is a negative psychotic and evil energy that increases the user's abilities, strength, and stamina. Psycho Power feeds off the fear, anger, and the hatred of others. This energy can also affect the skin, body color, eyes, and hair of people. At the ending of A Shadow Falls, there's an implication that Ryu had mastered the power of nothingness, as the Hadouken used to defeat M. Bison gives off an aura seemingly consistent with the power. Ryu identifies the power of nothingness, not as the power to defeat one's enemies, but as the power to grow in skill, completely distinct from the Satsui no Hado. In Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, the power of nothingness is one of the central concepts to the Street Fighter Assassin's Fist. Having seen what the Satsui no Hado did to his brother, and believing that there must be another way to tap into the chi needed for the Anatsuken, Goken travels the world. Years later, he explains to his students that during his travel, a kung fu master named Jen set him on the path to unlocking the power of nothingness. And it is this power that Goken teaches them to tap into for their arts, completely altering the school's tradition. The idea that Jen showed the path to this power to Goken, as proposed by Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, would explain how both were able to survive Akuma's Shun Gokutatsu. The game storyline explains that both were able to empty their soul in time. Emptying oneself of everything takes extreme discipline. However, they express disbelief that it can be done instantaneously in the middle of battle. Ryu mentions that his chi in his state feels cool, while Ken states that he feels hot. In early training, Ken seems to be stimulated by following a particular meditative kata, which presents more difficulty and less speed of progress than following another kata, which stimulates the Satsui no Hado, but it's purer. Kata is a Japanese word meaning form. It refers to a detailed choreographed pattern of martial arts movements made to be practiced alone. It can also be reviewed within groups when training. It is practiced in Japanese martial arts as a way to memorize and perfect the movements being executed. In the Udon comic book series, Street Fighter Unlimited, Ryu enters a state he calls Shinryu by merging the Satsui no Hado with the power of nothingness, bringing balance to his light and his dark chi. As Shinryu, he was able to finally defeat Akuma. Ryu's appearance in this form is mostly the same. The only noticeable changes are to his left eye, which glows red, as well as the occasional flare of a red and blue aura. The power of nothingness is the inverse of the Satsui no Hado, also known as the surge of murderous intent, or surge of killing intent, sometimes translated as the dark Hado. It is a dark, energy-based force that is known for its use by Akuma. For the people who do succeed in harnessing the Satsui no Hado, they become extremely powerful, but at the cost of losing their humanity and compassion. They developed a cold, negative outlook in life, a nihilistic detachment from themselves, as well as other people, and develop an obsessive, dark, murderous, and even suicidal desire to fight. What the Satsui no Hado is rarely gets talked about in the mainline games. However, it is described as taking the spirit to kill the opponent to the extreme. It transforms into a physical power. According to Seth in Street Fighter IV, The Ties That Bind, his definition of the Satsui no Hado describes it as a power rooted in the darker natural basis of the human instinct, including competition, survival, to trample on, impose, and thrive over opposition, and the manifestation of destruction born out of conflict and fighting. The Satsui no Hado made its first debut alongside Akuma in Super Street Fighter II Turbo. During the events of Street Fighter V, the Satsui no Hado within Ryu was being called out by the consumer of souls. In martial arts, the Dark Hado, as it appears in the Street Fighter universe, is a form of chi. What is chi? How does it work? Chi is the energy that is inside you and around you. It is the energy that you use to breathe, to eat, to talk. It is the energy that moves the waves in the ocean, the plants to grow. More than that, chi is the energy that makes you and everything around you feel alive. Everyone manipulates their inner chi. We see evidence of it when we breathe, when we talk, walk, eat. Any action you do can be considered a small manipulation of your chi and the chi around you. However, the use of this chi in our daily life is managed inefficiently. For example, you might use more energy on running than walking. Proper management of this force needs balance, and that is where martial arts training comes in. In martial arts training, you can train to have a better control of the use of your chi. As you might know by now, chi is the energy you use to punch, kick, attack, and defend. This can be obtained by learning different types of postures and movements of any desired style of fighting art. Each style of martial arts is a form of how one uses its potential without draining one's energy. In other words, using techniques that will require minimum energy with maximum potential. An example of a technique is the breaking of a wood plank with your palm in karate, using your body's momentum to bring an opponent down in judo. You can see full-on experienced martial artists do repetitive moves like the ones mentioned without draining their energy supply. Even though an experienced martial artist can get to the level of focus and energy that is required, it still requires that his moves and forms be influenced by other emotions. Emotions in fighting is a double-edged sword. If a fighter cannot control its emotions, he is more bound to lose a fight than an opponent that has great balance between energy and emotions. Having conflicting emotions during a fight may take the fighter lose more energy on itself and its opponent. That is why it is important for a fighter to fully develop a balance between both the control of their movements and their emotions. Fully developing this balance, an experienced martial artist can then push the boundaries of its power. In the Street Fighter universe, extensive training of your chi can go beyond the human capabilities. For example, a fighter can use its own chi to draw energy from the earth. It can give the user ability to sense and absorb chi from its surroundings, use teleportation, float, fly, and throw it in like a form of a fireball-like punch, aka a Hadoken. This is where the Dark Hado comes into play. To get a better understanding, The Dark Hado, or in Japanese, the Satsui no Hado, is a dark possessed surge of power that is deeply rooted into the person's instinct of survival and in position over its opponent. It is the desire to use hatred and rage to fuel victory in battle. The Dark Hado is beneficial in tapping the most obscure power available. It is also very lethal for an untrained mind to handle the capabilities of such power, such as why the dilemma facing Ryo, in which he does not want to be consumed by this type of power. His training is based on the concept of meritorious intent and the power of nothingness, which is not having any strong feeling towards your opponent. It's based on developing oneself as a martial artist and a human being. This practice focuses on emptying your mind and controlling your energy in fight, to inflict as little as damage possible to your opponent. The total opposite of what the Dark Hado requires. For the fighters who succeed in controlling the Dark Hado type of power and becoming powerful, changes in their outlook on life appear: loss of human empathy and compassion, rise in negativity, dark and obsessive nature of murderous intent. Under the Dark Hado's influence, a character's eyes will glow red, and their teeth will turn into sharp fangs, as the body of their skin darkens over time. Their hair will also turn red to white, and their nails will turn into claws. The voice of the character will become deeper. If one embraces it to a lesser degree, their eyes will glow blue. If one balances the Dark Hado and the power of nothingness, the character would be in complete control and balance of its power. However, if one has used it to their fullest extent for too long, they cannot be released from its hold and will transform into a supernatural entity, becoming one with the Dark Hado. Once a character is in this state, a union between hatred and fighting technique will create an aura of destruction, leaving all human feelings of compassion and empathy behind, technically becoming a demon-like figure. The Dark Hado character, who wields this power, has also the special ability to talk and speak with others telepathically, gain a healing factor, manipulate the soul of an individual, and can even control the weather. We can understand that the Dark Hado is the ultimate weapon in the Street Fighter universe. While some characters want to embrace its total power, other characters like Ryu tend to go a different route. Certainly, we can see the Dark Hado as a powerful weapon, used on the principles of hatred and destruction. But the Satsui no Hado is just a state of mind. It is a form of how powerful our mind and emotions are. I see it as a symbol of the power that lies in you, that when used to its maximum effect, it can produce outstanding results. I think if managed in a balanced state like Gotetsu, one can withhold its power without being consumed by its evil force. We will start this episode with a character that has deeply impacted Akuma's life, Gouken. Akuma is Gouken's younger brother and nemesis. Gouken greatly despises him for embracing the Satsui no Hado and murdering Gotetsu, their sensei and mentor. Because of this, he does all he can to protect Ryu and Ken from him, to the point where he willingly fights Akuma in a battle to the death so that he won't come after them. Our next character was one of the most powerful assassins within the Street Fighter universe, Gen. Gen saw Akuma as a skilled opponent who could finally kill him, a morbid desire amplified by his own terminal sickness. However, their skills often clash, giving each other challenges. Akuma, however, backed down upon learning Gen is fatally ill, but would engage him again after seeing he can still fight. Akuma emerges victorious, and is amplified to have killed him for good in Street Fighter V, in their last fight to the death. In the latest issue of Akuma Goes to Hell, after his encounter with the demonic Darkstalkers, Akuma chooses to remain in the hellish Makai dimension to take his training to terrifying new levels. Alone in a demonic landscape, Akuma battles unearthly creatures, giant monstrosities, and battles an undead form of Gen. He is the Overlord, mastermind of the world's deadliest terrorist organization, and Bison. Akuma, despite having no direct grudge, holds major contempt towards Bison, the latter being an even more sick kind of evil, using shortcuts to power. Because of this, he has no problem killing him on a whim. Bison, on the other hand, wants Akuma's Satsui no Hado as a means to increase his own power. His disdain for Bison persists, even when he becomes Oni, and perhaps is even greater. He is a Japanese hermit who is over 140 years old and has mastered the secrets of immortality. Oro is among one of the only men who have matched Akuma in combat. The two have fought each other to a draw, as the fight was called off due to the two fighters sensing that if they fought each other seriously, it would result in a mutual kill. Both have earned each other's respect and contempt on a personal basis. The leader of the secret society, Gil. Upon hearing about his powers, Akuma desired to fight Gil. Akuma killed Gil with the raging demon but left without realizing that Gil could resurrect himself. This character is by far Akuma's greatest rival, no other than Ryu. Akuma is one of Ryu's most hated enemies, as he was the one who tried to kill his master Goken. Akuma also attempts to lure Ryu into succumbing into the Satsui no Hado, therefore casting aside his humanity, in hopes of finally finding a worthy opponent for the ultimate fight to the death. Ryu knows this is a trap of temptation planned by Akuma, as Ryu has tried his best to find a way to get rid of the Satsui no Hado, while refusing to succumb to that kind of power. Akuma sees this tempting him after finally conquering the dark power, and mastering his own Hado power in Street Fighter V. Ken. Like Ryu, Ken is aware of the threat Akuma possesses over humanity. Asura. Asura is perhaps Akuma's greatest rival. After Asura defeated Ryu, he then fought Akuma for over 500 years. Adon. Because Akuma killed Muay Thai master that Adon was supposed to fight, Adon seeks to defeat Akuma to prove himself. In Street Fighter Alpha 3, Adon fights Akuma and loses to him. Akuma doesn't kill him, however, due to him deeming Adon worthy of death. Nekali. Nekali is an ancient spirit that seeks to devour Akuma's soul. When Nekali successfully absorbs it, Akuma escapes his stomach using the Mudo Tensho. Abyss. The final boss in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He has 3 forms, including a giant black statue man, a green ghost-like man, and a giant lava monster. Garuda, a demonic being clad in samurai armor, capable of absorbing negative energies to strengthen his own power. From Tekken, Kazuya Mishiyama, Kasumi's son, corrupted by his own devil gene, inherited from her. Akuma is tasked by Kasumi to destroy him should he also fall prey to power like his father. Akuma fights Kazuya at G Corporation's Millennium Tower and pushes him to transform him into his devil form. The fight is interrupted as Heihachi attempts to kill both Akuma and Kazuya by blowing up the tower with a satellite laser. Both are revealed to have survived, however, with Akuma returning to try and finish Kazuya off after Kazuya's victory against Heihachi in a post-story bonus chapter. Upon seeing him, Kazuya transforms into his devil again, and Akuma answers by becoming Shin Akuma. The fight ends in a cutscene where both fire their respective projectiles at each other. The outcome of the battle is left undecided as the volcano bursts with lava, though dialogue after the scene implies Kazuya to still be alive and a threat to the world. Heihachi Mishiyama, Kasumi's husband, who has caused many problems with his ambition. Akuma is also instructed by Kasumi to destroy him. Akuma and Heihachi fought alongside one another momentarily against Kazuya's Jack 6s. Akuma reveals that he waited for Heihachi to establish his own strength before engaging him, one of many instances of his moral code being followed. Heihachi proved to be a challenge for Akuma, but he ultimately defeated him as he blew up the Mishima dojo. Later, it is revealed that Heihachi actually survived, buried under his own dojo. This allowed him to fake his death and reveal Kazuya's devil form to the world. He attempted to kill both Kazuya and Akuma by targeting G Corporation's Millennium Tower with a satellite laser. Despite successfully destroying the tower, both Kazuya and Akuma are revealed to have survived the blast. Kazuya used his devil blaster on Saibatsu's satellite, prompting Heihachi to vindictively tell their family story from his perspective before the two meet for a final fight to death. Akuma is present, apparently watching both Heihachi and Kazuya fight, until Kazuya finally kills Heihachi, and Akuma prepares to take out the victor. Akuma has pushed the boundaries of his power, and the boundaries in his traditional appearances. In Street Fighter II, the animated movie, even though in this movie is more surrounded by the main protagonists Ryu and Ken, and the main antagonist M. Bison, Akuma has managed to be in the backgrounds of the cities of Calcutta, sitting in front of a wall, most likely as a spectator to the fight Dalsum and Honda had. In animated Street Fighter II V series, he is also seen multiple times on different places and occasions. Akuma also appears in the arcade versions of Street Fighter, the movie, as a regular character. He also appears in the console versions of Street Fighter, the movie, as a secret boss who can be selected via a cheat code. In South Park, Imagination Land Episode 2, Butters wakes up to find his mother and father at his bedside, having cooked him breakfast. Butters explains about his weird dream of Imagination Land, only to find out that he was only hallucinating with his eyes closed. He wakes up in Imagination Land, having passed out and wet himself, and becomes sad that his parents are never gentle to him. The evil side of Imagination Land breaks through the barrier and charges at the residents of the good side. The terrorists proclaim Allah, but are killed in seconds by one of the creatures. The mayor of Imagination Land is then badly injured by Alien, and Butters is pursued by Predator and stormtroopers. In the background, we see a glimpse of Akuma as he is gathered with the other evil side members as they are having a discussion of who is the evilest of all. Akuma has also appeared in other gaming franchises as well. Akuma, along with Ryu, both made appearances in Capcom and CyberConnect 2's collaborative beat-em-up title Asura's Wrath. Akuma appears as a DLC-only character with his own fleshed-out episode titled The Strongest vs. the Angriest. Much like Ryu's episode, it uses the Super Street Fighter IV engine while shifting to the traditional battle system for the second half. The story picks up after Ryu's episode, where Akuma suddenly appears. To prevent distractions, Akuma immediately executes the Demon Armageddon on Ryu, but instead of piercing him, he launches him so hard it forces Ryu through a wormhole back to his original timeline. When Akuma learns of Asura's name, he reveals himself to be familiar with the deity's background as a being of wrath and challenges him. Akuma retains his move from Super Street Fighter IV and switches ultras between matches. The wrath of the raging demon can be countered through a quick time event. At the end of the first half, he transforms into Oni. At the end of the battle, Asura and Akuma, reverting from Oni somehow, continue to fight, with the fight apparently lasting for 500 years. In the time skip, both fighters are still facing each other in a standstill and have turned to stone with developing moss. Eventually, both statues begin to move at last, finally finish the fight, ending in a cliffhanger. In Capcom vs SNK 2, Akuma appears as a boss. He is shown on a roof in Osaka, fighting Rugal. If it's normal Akuma, he will appear by himself, wondering who emitted a great war cry. Akuma then deduces that it was the player's character, team, and proceeds to challenge them directly. When he is defeated, he states that he will never give up, and then says that a real challenger has appeared at last, which is none other than Rugal himself, and the two proceed to battle at once. If he is the one speaking to Rugal on the roof, he states that he will remember Rugal's name and performs the Shungoku Satsu on Rugal. However, Rugal then grabs Akuma by the chest, commenting on how much the Satsu no Hado impressed him, and forcibly gives the Orochi power to Akuma before his death. He will then transform into Shin Akuma, also known as God Akuma in this game, due to the different kanji that appears on his back. If defeated, he is left clinging to life until black entities revive him and take him away, ordering him to go on and become stronger. However, if Rugal is the one speaking to Akuma, he states that he enjoyed the Satsu no Hado and comments that Akuma is not worthy of it. Deciding that it requires a new possessor, he then kills Akuma outright and absorbs his Satsu no Hado to become Ultimate Rugal. However, Akuma takes possession of Rugal's body, and as his mind isn't strong enough to contain his power, he then disappears after Rugal's defeat, stating he has no name and is nothing and everything. If the game is cleared with Akuma, the following text scrolls. Though he has beaten the evil powers, Akuma isn't satisfied. He is not satisfied by power, energy, or victories. Nobody can realize what Akuma longs for. As fandom states, the brothers Akuma and Goken were students of Gotetsu. Gotetsu's martial art is a life-threatening pursuit that incorporates diverse martial arts into its execution. He also taught Shun-Goku-Satsu, a lethal technique which, though extremely powerful, puts its practitioner in substantial danger. It is said that under Gotetsu's teachings, the brothers debated the true nature and path to mastering their fighting style. Goken, unable to accept the violent nature and the Satsu no Hado of his fighting style, left Gotetsu to begin his own dojo, which Gotetsu did not oppose. Akuma continued Gotetsu's teachings and vowed to use their fighting style as it was intended. He relinquished all empathy to the principle of Satsu no Hado in order to gain knowledge of Shun-Goku-Satsu. Further, Akuma realized his limit as a martial artist could be expanded, so he left Gotetsu's guidance of enlightenment to train alone to gain more power. In contrast to Gotetsu, who had been able to use the Satsu no Hado without indulging in its dark side, he developed a lust for combat as a result of embracing the Satsu no Hado fully. When Akuma came back, he entered a death match with Gotetsu to prove his superiority. The Shun-Gokusatsu was used by Akuma to kill his master. The master, happy to see his student surpass him, died, and Akuma placed the prayer beads of his dead master around his neck, believing he was the true master. Goken came to visit his former master to see how he was doing, only to find his lifeless body and his brother, now no longer human. The shocked Goken, seeing that Akuma had killed their master, confronted him, but Akuma said nothing and left for the woods. Akuma confronted Goken many years later. He told Goken that he was not strong enough to face him without giving in to the killing intent. A retort from Goken accused Akuma of dishonoring his master by showing disrespect to his art, which he explained was much more than death and destruction. Akuma explained to his brother that Gotetsu did not fully comprehend the Satsui no Hado, and that he was a fool for not using it. A fight ensued, and Goken prevailed. Akuma instructed his brother to kill him, but Goken had no intention of murdering his own family, which caused Akuma to call his brother weak for sparing the life of a powerful opponent, and told him that he would return. Several years later, it is said that Akuma returned to Goken's dojo and fought him. Using the Shun-Gokusatsu, Goken had somehow lost his soul during the attack and survived in a coma, but Akuma believed him dead. Ken saw the flash of the attack while running to the dojo, but arrived only to find Goken on the floor. Akuma was in the woods when Ken confronted him and fought him. When Ken was defeated, Akuma disappeared. In search of worthy opponents, Akuma begins searching the globe, secluding himself in the shadows. He watches small tournaments and street fights, desperately seeking someone who might be able to match his strength. He then is challenged by a man named Gen. Gen fights a vicious battle, even surviving the Shun-Gokusatsu by emptying his soul in time. The moment Akuma begins to wonder if this man is the worthy opponent he is searching for, he senses something is amiss. Akuma's suspicions are confirmed when Gen's mouth bleeds. The competitor is ill, making the match unfair. Gen tells Akuma to kill him after being knocked to the ground. As Akuma can no longer stand the battle any longer, he leaves, angering Gen. After the battle, Akuma becomes obsessed with Ryu, trying to awaken the Satsui no Hado within him. Eventually, Ryu finds Akuma's island and challenges him. While Akuma merely tested Ryu, Ryu eventually won the battle. Akuma regains composure and tells Ryu to find him again once he has embraced the Satsui no Hado, before striking the ground with a powerful blow and disappearing. Ryu lies in the ocean as the island collapses around him. He contemplates Akuma's words. As he leaves his destroyed home, Akuma remembers all the fighters he had faced and wonders with anticipation if one day he will encounter someone strong enough to kill him. He finds a desolate cavern and begins to train, looking forward to the day he will face Ryu again. At some point, he defeats and kills a Muay Thai fighter. Adon sees this as a challenge and sets out to find Akuma, to fight him and prove that he is stronger. In his ending, he comes to the realization that worthy opponents have challenged him during his journey. He decides that he could stay on Earth to perfect his killing power, knowing that they are opponents that Akuma can consider worthy. While thinking about the opponents he challenged, there are visions of Gen and Bison and Ryu on the moon. He then comments that he will be the next to die. While waiting for Ryu to embrace the Satsui no Hado, Akuma wanders the globe in search of worthy opposition. He is confronted by Adon, who wishes to establish his fighting style as supreme. Akuma easily wins, but instead of killing Adon, he just leaves, apparently deeming his defeated foe as unworthy. Sometime later, Akuma is intercepted by Guy, who refuses to allow him to see M. Bison. Akuma ignores Guy's pleas and engages him in combat. The two then decide to end the fight after they realize their primary objective was the same, defeating M. Bison. He then confronts Bison, who tells Akuma that he won't be able to defeat him as long as the psycho drive exists. Akuma berates the dictator for not relying solely upon his fists, and they fight. As Akuma emerges victorious, he completely terminates Bison with the raging demon, causing him to suffer horribly as the attacks kill him. In his ending, Akuma is then challenged by Gen once more, and they fight a second battle, the results of which are unknown. Ryu rejected the Satsui no Hado during his own battle with the Shadowloo leader, M. Bison, declaring that a true warrior does not rely on violent intent. In Super Street Fighter II Turbo, it is said that Akuma did not officially enter the second World Warrior Tournament, but did monitor the event that took place in hope of finding an adequate challenge. He also challenged Bison, though whether or not Bison accepted his challenge, and if the result of the fight, if the former did happen, is left ambiguous. Akuma then is left as multiple participants engaged Bison. In a non-canon event, he ambushed the host, M. Bison, and made short work of him with the Shun-Gokusatsu. Bison is obliterated in an instant. Akuma then engages in combat with the second finalist, but the identity of this warrior, as well as the outcome of the bout, remains unknown. In both the original Super Street Fighter II Turbo and its HD remake, Akuma has two different endings, depending on who the final opponent is. If it's M. Bison, Akuma will muse on the fact that he did not master the Psycho Power and let it control him. If it's Shin Akuma, he will reflect on his victory over his own darkness and consider death beneath him. Super Street Fighter II Turbo Revival combines both endings into a whole one, while Ultra removes the second ending, thus causing the first ending to always play regardless of if Akuma beats M. Bison or Shin Akuma. In Street Fighter IV, sometime before the Third World Warrior Tournament, Ryu and Akuma would duel, with Akuma dominating the fight. As he rebukes Ryu about his rejection of the Dark Hado, Ryu finds the strength to recover and fight back. However, Ken would interrupt the fight, forcing Akuma to leave. During the events of Seth's tournament, he continues his training and senses the Satsui no Hado re-emerging within Ryu. Immediately, he sets off to find Ryu and help him realize this power so he can try to kill him in battle. Like other tournaments, Akuma does not officially enter, but stays in the shadows. Later, he finds an unconscious Ryu in the care of his brother Gouken. Akuma noticed that his brother had perfected the power of nothingness. The two brothers fought, with Ryu being the prize. Both survived their fight, and Ryu was saved by Gouken. Akuma then continued his training and his search for a worthy opponent to match his own, raising an entire forest with his power. In Alina's ending in Ultra Street Fighter IV, she is shown to have befriended him in one of her flashbacks. In Onyx's intro, his roar echoes through the night. Instantly after, his presence causes the explosion of a nearby tree and the death of a bird. He then looks up and proclaims that he is evil incarnate. In his ending, he stands in the center of a volcano. Then he only jumps up and chops the ground with his hand, resulting in an instant eruption that engulfs him in lava. As the lava explodes out of the volcano, Oni flies out of it unharmed, laughing manically and yelling ferociously. In Street Fighter V Prologue, Muro Tensho. In Akuma's story, he and Gen fight once again. Akuma becomes victorious in the battle, but was criticized by Gen for leading to the path of discarding humanity. He then finishes and seemingly kills Gen off for good. He then sees a vision of Ryu rejecting the Satsui no Hado. Much to his frustration, Nikali appears and challenges Akuma for her soul. Not only did Nikali lose to Akuma, but he attempts to devour Akuma, and Akuma does the Muro Tensho to escape Nikali's stomach. He then seeks Ryu and battles him. In a Satsui no Hado vs Munoken clash, Akuma defeats Ryu in battle, but does not kill him. Instead, he questions if there is no one that can match him. Ryu, smiling while lying on the ground, asks questions to Akuma, claiming that his fists will continue to communicate with Akuma on opposite ends. Akuma then flees, letting fate determine when those two will meet again. Akuma appears in Kage's character story, which took place prior to encountering Nikali, after realizing Ryu's rejection from the Satsui during a Shadow Falls episode. After Kage went after Sagat, Akuma is the said Shadow Demon's next target. To prove his former host Ryu is nothing without him, Akuma considers Kage as nothing more than a soulless silhouette of his former host. Just as Kage mockingly claims he kept part of him at bay because of his beliefs in laws of heaven, a nearly beaten Akuma mocks Kage for not understanding anything aside from only strength and fighting endlessly. Akuma then uses a Houten Seiken Geki to make Kage disappear from him, and wonders if Kage is the path which Ryu has truly chosen. In Street Fighter III Second Impact, like in the Third World Warrior Tournament, Akuma did not enter the Fourth World Warrior Tournament, but once again lurked in the shadows. Akuma easily defeated Sean, who mistook him for Ryu. However, he did not realize that Gil had risen from the dead when he pulled off a Shun Gokusatsu on him. He then faces Ryu, asking him to show him his full power, but Ryu replies that malicious intent is not the way of the warrior. In this game, he appears as a secret boss, using the Raging Demon on whoever the player is facing. He battles the player afterwards. If Akuma is felled, the scenery will darken, the ground will shake, and he will get back up and unleash his true power for a second fight. Akuma trained relentlessly over this period of time, harnessing his power and learning several new attacks. Some were meant to create tidal waves, others were described as powerful enough to split Uluru, Ayer's Rock, in half, and one could kill an opponent with a single blow. Kongo Konguretsu-san is a technique taught by Akuma himself, in which he channels all his power into one hand, and smashes it into the ground, creating a vortex of energy upward around him. According to legend, this technique was used to destroy his original training ground, the Onigami Isle Guendo. It is also said that the same technique can cause the earth itself to crumble beneath him. In Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, despite his now incredible fighting skills, Akuma even fought with Oro in a simple, inconclusive battle, sensing each other's enormous ki and testing their abilities. Both men were impressed by each other's power, but they held some contempt for each other on a personal level. The episode also reveals that Akuma is now able to remain underwater, under massive pressure, and even destroy the sunken remains of a modern inner ship with his Tensho Kaireki Jing technique. The Shungokusatsu, meaning instant prison murder, usually translated as the Raging Demon, is a super combo commonly seen used by its heavy practitioner, Akuma. It is one of the most powerful attacks throughout the franchise. In the storyline, the Shungokusatsu is a very powerful but dangerous technique, taught in the original principles of the Ansatsuken by Gotetsu. When performed, the user of the Satsui no Hado would hand themselves over entirely to the killing intent, launching a series of deadly strikes in a moment. Historically, those that had used this technique had been unable to resist the potency of the Satsui no Hado and were consumed by it, their minds reduced to that of violent, demon-like berserkers, such as Iworyu and Oni. Gotetsu was the only known person who could somehow use this technique without falling into the deeper aspects of the Satsui no Hado. The Satsui no Hado, sometimes translated as the Dark Hado, is a dark energy-based force. It is the antithesis of the power of nothingness. While the executed attack is a brutal onslaught of merciless fury, the basis of the attack is said to be linked to karmic forces drawn from the influence of the Satsui no Hado, channeling an infernal punishment in which the weight of sins and evil the victim has committed attacks their soul. While immensely powerful, this attack cannot work on artificial life forms. There is only one method known to perfectly counter this attack, that some characters have survived its wrath, being the power of emptiness, or Mu. Gouken, Akuma's brother, had barely survived, being sent into a coma, before unearthing himself after coming back to consciousness. His grasp of the power of nothingness was limited at the time, and was greatly improved after his near-death experience. However, there are notable victims who somehow have survived this attack. Gil faced Shungokusatsu head-on, but because of his resurrection ability, he survived the encounter. As with every Street Fighter move created, all of them might have been inspired either by another anime or manga. This move in particular is not the exception. The concept of Shungokusatsu and Satsui no Hado itself seems also heavily inspired by the concept of Matoki no Aura from the Fist of the North Star manga series. Furthermore, the attack seems specifically inspired by the star technique called Hokuto Manju Muanken, North Star Thousand Hand Demon Sound Fist. The technique involves countless strikes in the blink of an eye and is fueled by the user's evil fighting aura, making the Shungokusatsu share many similarities with it. This is the version that is used in the manga Street Fighter 3 Ryu Final, where Akuma's Shungokusatsu is visually identical to Manju Maonking. In addition, the appearance of the Heaven Kanji, characteristically associated with its user Akuma, and how the move style is that of assassination, is likely a reference to the Japanese word Tenchu, meaning heavenly retribution, which was a popular memento written on paper by assassins to their victims and associates in feudal and turbulent eras of Japan. This move, while it looks cool, also serves as a great fighting tactic. In earlier installments, the Shungokusatsu usually can be combined into a standing jab or a standing roundhouse, as well as cancelling a slower move, in order to take advantage of the opponent being hit-stunned long enough from the prior attacks, but only if the inputs were done fast enough. Like most high-powered moves in Street Fighter 4, focus attacks can also provide an opening. Despite its power, however, characters can escape with longer range moves due to the actual grab being close range. It can also be countered with as little as a quick jab or punished with a retreating jump attack. Its first animated appearance was in the episode The World's Greatest Warrior. Akuma used this move on Gouken after he was inquired by him on why he decided to make a return after so long. Akuma replies by stating that he has learned the ultimate move of their art, in which Gouken says, "Not the Raging Demon?" To which Akuma stands up and replies, "Yes," and uses it on Gouken at point-blank range. Later, during Ken's battle with Akuma, Akuma threatens to use the Shungokusatsu on Ken himself, but is thwarted before he can pull it off. The move makes his first cinematic appearance in Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, when Akuma uses it to kill his master, Gotetsu. As the latter charges up an extremely powerful Metsu Hadouken, Akuma engulfs himself in a mass of red flames, zooming at high speed towards Gotetsu and passing through the Hadouken. Little of the move is seen, though as Gotetsu is grabbed, a bright flash can be seen right before the shot changes, and a harrowing scream can be heard echoing along with the familiar screech. As Akuma stands over his fallen master, the kanji for heaven can be seen not only burning bright on his back, but also in the thundery clouds above. Street Fighter V revealed that the attack consists of a series of teleport punches that start out slow, but get progressively faster as the attack goes on, and targets vital weak spots of the body, which brutally, or even fatally, injures the opponent. Having mastered the original form of the unnamed Shokotan art, Akuma's fighting style is based on the same vein as the all-around characters, with a much more offense-oriented design. Akuma's overall style focuses on completely dominating the opponent and preventing counterattacks. His mix of raw attack power, combined with moves that can control the air and keep him mobile, allow him to maintain a fierce onslaught offensive that can end matches quickly. However, Akuma power is offset by very low stamina and stun, meaning that any whiffed attack or defensive opening could irreversibly tip the scales against him and lead to a massive punishment. As a result, heavy investment on the player's part is required to properly utilize his full potential. As a computer-controlled boss, Akuma is even more powerful, faster, and more durable in comparison, usually only appearing as a final or hidden boss. This reflects his personality, as Akuma often holds back his power so as to give his opponents a fighting chance. When fought as a secret boss, Akuma effectively deems the player's character worthy and powers up accordingly. In order to face him, you have to either obtain a high score, reach the last stage quickly, or defeat many human opponents without losing a single credit. Now with Akuma's basics, Akuma has better projectiles than the rest of the cast, goes through other characters' projectiles with his tatsus and teleports, controls distance better with his air Hadouken due to invulnerable tatsus, and never dizzies. It looks like he gets dizzy, but Akuma recovers instantly, effectively saving him from longer combos and juggles, but still leaves him vulnerable to meaties on wake up. Akuma basically has all option selects from the old Shotos, plus other advantages from the CP1 Ryu, and the inescapable projectile traps with Air Hadouken and fierce Shankunetsu Hadouken. His strengths: high priority normals, and most are fast to come out. Great zoning game with 2 good ground fireballs that can knock down, as well as an air fireball that basically all the cast have no answers for. Can easily escape from corner traps or bad situations with teleport. High damage combos and specials, juggles well. Inescapable corner trap on some characters. 2 good offensive reversals in SRK and Satsu. Can play well offensively or defensively. Also has good combo ability. When dizzy, he recovers instantly, so he will still fall for a dizzy, and he's vulnerable to a meaty on waking up in his dizzy state. But that's it. As for Akuma's weaknesses, below average rain on normal, has no super, and is banned from basically everything. Balance issues. In Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Akuma is banned in US tournaments, and soft banned. For example, not used on principle as opposed to being officially unusable in Japanese tournaments. This is a result of the fact that Akuma was initially designed to be extremely powerful. Such powerful is potentially reflected in his lack of a super combo at that point. Turbo HD Remix attempted to make this effect and Akuma more playable by lowering his stamina, giving the Sanku Hadouken a blowback effect, and adding a much weaker Shungoku Satsu as his super combo. Despite these efforts, Akuma has remained banned in the HD Remix for the large majority of tournaments, as the changes made to this character did not offset his overreaching power compared to the rest of the cast, and in some cases made it worse. Due to the steep angle of the Sanku Hadouken, inherited from his later appearances, it is possible to perform cross-up combos that could not be done originally, and with the blowback effect, he can gain extra airtime to avoid a projectile the opponent throws at him. In addition, due to a bug in the move's speed, the Raging Demon cannot be interrupted at close range, making it nearly impossible to avoid when cornered. In the original Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Akuma had 4 different win quotes, the most out of all of the other characters. Also, when he is about to be fought, his music is already playing, and he introduces himself to the player character. In Hyper Street Fighter 2, a bit of M. Bison's themes plays, and then Akuma's theme plays when he appears, and then the fight begins from there. as if to create a surprise to the players. Why Akuma's win quotes were removed from the overseas versions is unknown. In the CPS2 Street Fighter II games, it is highly implied Akuma is the Ancient One, M. Bison was referring to in his ending. It is rather odd that Akuma would be the Ancient One.